feedback? I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Board of Finance meeting for Monday, October 20th, 2014 to order. First order of business is public forum. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board in public forum? Hearing none, let's move on to item 2. That is to approve the minutes. 2.1 will be the regular meeting minutes, September 22nd, 2014. Is there any motion? Move. Second?
Second.
Comments, questions, corrections, deletions, etc.? Anybody? All right, while you're looking, Linda, I may have missed this, but we had, there was a question about how much retirement sick pay,
Yeah.
the number of people who are still eligible. And you said you were going to get us a count of the number of people who are still eligible for retirement sick pay?
Send it out.
Okay, thank you.
I have a minor revision. Right above section 5, I'd asked a question about full-day kindergarten, and it says Ms. Bloss. I think it should be Mr. Bloss.
Those are both one of the daughters in.
Yeah.
I have I suspect this is just a change in the language that they're using to describe the fund balance. But Sheila, if I could grab your attention for just a second. You were talking about the,
Where are we?
sorry, page 3 at the top, second paragraph end, talking about what the ultimate fund surplus was.
Right.
Okay, and it says bringing the, this phrase is just, it's confusing me. Bringing the result of operations unassigned fund balance to a total of $1,083,291. That's what was added this year. I don't think that number doesn't seem correct to me. It's obviously not the total of the total fund balance. The sentence is just awkward. It's confusing.
Right, that's addition. That was the additional amount that was added to the undesignated.
It's also in a different fund. So it looks like it was just plugged in. So sorry to be.
Well, I actually brought the document with me, but Matt, I'm hoping that you could answer for me.
I think the original question was how the percentage was related, because the numbers didn't seem to add up to that
Yeah,
percentage.
but-
Wasn't that what we were talking
You had
about?
it?
Right here.
Matt.
Sheila, you want to take it?
Yeah.
The real question was
I'll take it back.
You did.
So the results of operations is $1,083,000 is what we projected.
okay.
It was a revenue surplus of $388,544, the expenditure surplus on the town side of $654,747, and then the Board of Ed surplus of $40,000. That was what we projected in August. That was what
Okay.
we discussed at that meeting,
Right.
giving $1,083,291, which was the surplus results of operation. And then from there, we made some changes. Not changes, some transfers from unassigned fund balance to the reserve for debt service, the retirement sick pay, the reserve for contracts, and continued in force.
Right. But Lou, your question more is to the language there?
Well, a couple points. I remember all the transfers, and all those made sense. We dealt with the medical fund balance, and we dealt with assigning some money for debt service next year. I mean, I understand all that. That paragraph doesn't convey any of that.
Okay.
I mean, the whole, it should be either a bigger paragraph, or that sentence just needs to be changed.
Yeah, hold on, I think,
Where am I?
give me 1 second here, I'm just doing some quick math. I think what, that last statement, bringing the result of the operations unassigned fund balance to a total of $1,083,083, that is the addition of those three numbers above 388, 654, and 40,000. So I think the wording on that is a little misleading. That is the result of what was
I would say resulting in
an additional a contribution to the unassigned fund balance in the amount of $1,083,083.
I would say that would help.
Right.
And then the transfers are reflected in previous minutes. We probably don't need to touch it here because they are reflected in previous minutes.
Unless you want to attach that schedule to the minutes.
It's in the minutes before. It's in the
They're in there?
Yeah.
Did we just add the word up, fund balance up to a total of?
No.
No, that's incorrect.
Yeah, that's incorrect. How about we rephrase it to resulting in an increase of unassigned fund balance in the amount of $1,083,290.
Prior to transfers.
Prior to transfers. Is there a motion?
I would make that motion.
And a
Second.
second. Any further questions, comments? All in
Yes.
favor?
Aye.
All
Yeah, you're-
opposed?
Okay.
Any abstentions? Good. Thanks, Lou. Any others on the minutes?
3.1, first, it's on page 2 of the minutes.
Yep.
Just first paragraph, yeah, that previous presentation, there were some members from Board of Finance and Board of Education. I just add in attendance at that presentation.
Any others? Call the question. All in favor?
Just one thing, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
The minutes are September 15th. Our agenda says September 22nd. Just so everything's consistent, I think we did meet on the 15th, if I'm
We
not
did meet on
mistaken. So tonight's agenda should then, I think, reflect that we're approving the minutes of the September 15, 2014.
Right.
That's what it says
No, on our agenda.
on our agenda.
Then let us, is there a motion? I need a motion to change the agenda to reflect September 15th.
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained? Good, I think that does it.
Great.
Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Opposed? One abstention.
Actually, I'm abstaining from the minutes. That was not here.
You weren't here as well. Thank you. Two abstentions. Item 3, correspondence. Pension Committee minutes. Any comments, questions?
I did have a question.
Certainly.
On old business, item 4, Mr. Goldblatt reporting that the GEA contract has reached a tentative agreement, which will have an impact on pension benefits when the contract has been ratified. More details will be forthcoming. Is it been ratified? No. So
No details will be forthcoming?
forthcoming at some future date. Okay, thank you.
Any others?
I mean, these were a month ago, but figured it was worth asking.
In the
I
absence,
would be happy to
To have shared that.
brief you in executive session.
All right, that's fine at the moment.
Ken?
yeah, in the absence of the Standing Building Committee, which did not meet, I'm,
Let's stay with the Pension Committee first.
oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
Anybody else on the pension? No. Okay. Ken?
Yeah, in the absence of that, I'm in something of a time warp, having missed that one, but there was one thing that caught my eye on the September minutes of the Standing Building Committee, and I...
Can you take it
I
up
just-
under old business?
I can.
Please.
Can I speak just regarding the building committee?
Yes.
They are meeting tomorrow night, and I will be in attendance for that.
Tomorrow meeting?
Tomorrow's,
Scheduled meeting?
yeah, it was scheduled as a special meeting, but it's the same agenda, because it got moved. So. Just wanted to confirm the rescheduled date.
Okay. Item 4, review and accept the report of expenditures to the Board of Education for September 2014. Linda, what would you like to bring to our attention? How are you this evening?
Good, how are you?
Well, thank you.
Bear with me, I broke my glasses today, so I'm kind of a little crooked and lopsided here. So our expenditures for September are $4,272,080.13, and that is 16.45% of our budget. Last year at this time, we were 16.02%. Oh, just a little bit further than we were last year at this time. I'm sure you noticed that the report has little changes to it. There was the addition of a revenue column, which
Yes.
was one of the items that had been talked about before, so I figured I'd try it and throw it in there and see whether or not people liked it. So we'll see how it turns out.
I do have a question on that for a little later.
Okay. Salaries were about the same as we were last year. I did find that there was an employee posted to the wrong account through this point from, I think she was hired in August to this point. So that's been corrected and it'll be reflected on next month's report. Employee benefits were about the same as we were last year. Purchase services is a little bit higher. We've had some legal expenditures due to negotiations. We currently have 3 contracts that are in negotiation and have not been finalized yet.
Which contracts are those?
Custodial, food service, and support services, which is para secretaries union. Tuition is lower than this time last year. Supplies and materials are also lower, and capital is higher, and most of that is due to the site improvement projects that have been done. There were funds used to finish renovating the kindergarten classrooms and do some other projects. And transportation budget is higher than last year at this time, but that is just a timing of invoices. So I'll answer any questions you have.
Yeah, can we procedurally, adding the revenue in? How is that going to be reflected relative to your expenditures? Is this, will this result in off-budget, some off-budget accounting, that you would be spending that money in addition to the money that's been allocated through tax dollars? And if so, does that change, is the intention to change the appropriation or to have it absorb expenditures in excess perhaps of what the original appropriation was?
No, what we're going to be doing is, any of the things that are listed in the revenue were items that were always just put as credits against the account.
Okay.
Things like the excess cost grant, the magnet transportation grant,
Okay.
the funds that we get for the pre-K tuition.
Yep.
So now we're just separating them out, so we'll show the gross expenditures
Okay.
and then the revenue column, instead of netting them together like we used to.
Okay. So what grant or where would $64.80 have come for building and teaching? What would constitute that?
That was a donation from Coca-Cola. It was a small little donation that we got
We still have Coca-Cola in our school?
in the teacher's lounge.
Okay. Anybody else have questions on expenditures? On the financials, rather?
And
Yeah,
actually,
one,
the Coca-Cola revenue,
Right.
the vending machines that are in the teacher's lounge,
Right.
we get the profits, but they have to be used for the benefits of students. That's why it went to the supplies line,
Okay.
so that it could purchase supplies for the students. Otherwise, the funds get returned to the Bureau of Educational Services for the blind.
Okay.
It's a state statute that they get revenue from public vending machines.
Ah. Okay.
your cover note indicated that you'd provide us with a projection of the tuition budget for this year
Yes.
at this meeting.
We didn't really get into it at the Board of Education meeting because we had kind of a shortened schedule. At this point, tuition, we're seeing how a couple outplacements are playing out, but right now we think we're going to be close to what the budget is, but we are watching it. There's a couple things that are right on the edge that we're monitoring. So right now I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we're going to be okay with the budget for tuition.
What's the early report on the food service?
It was a loss for September. It was $36,000 loss, which is better than what the previous year was. Our sales have gone up dramatically. Over last year, we are overall 808 paid lunches more than we were for September of last year. and our breakfast counts are 245.
Wow.
More breakfast for the month. Breakfast for the month of September.
Say it fast 3 times.
So the food service director started middle of September, where she's already made some changes. The October menu looks a little different, so we're hoping that it's going to keep moving in a positive direction.
Okay.
You think that's an impact of both the kindergarten or the?
Actually, about half of our kindergarten students were staying in the building prior to all-day kindergarten. We don't know how many of them were actually eating, but they were eligible to eat lunch while they were staying in one of the before or after-school programs. So it's not that much of an increase in the number of students that we're serving for kindergarten.
And what percentage of all sales are in the high school versus all the other schools? Is the high school relatively small? I mean,
But yeah, the number of paid meals in the high school is small, but the high school sells a lot of a la carte sales.
okay.
So it doesn't, I don't have the tracking of the a la carte sales with me. It's not something that our system tracks very well. But the high school in September did 5,600 meals over 21 days. Last year they did 5,300, so they did 300 more meals, paid meals, in the day, in the month.
I guess I'm ultimately just going to be curious if the change in scenery next year will make a difference. I mean, the cafeteria, among the many deficits of the existing high school, cafeteria was just atrocious space.
Yes.
So I'm sort of just personally curious to see if that will make a difference, just having a better operation.
What I've seen of the design and the layout of the cafeteria, it should make a huge difference.
Okay.
Ken?
I had a question on your warrants. Is this appropriate to raise at the moment?
Sure.
I noticed on page 8 that there's a total of $40,000 for flooring at the new kindergartens, and I wondered if these expenses in the first full year of all-day kindergarten, the physical plant expenses, are what we had anticipated. Are they higher? Are they lower? I see you $40,000 in 3 items here. I'm sure it's appropriate, but how much is required?
It was more than we originally anticipated. We ran into some issues with flooring and finding asbestos under tiles and layers of tiles. There was some additional costs. I don't have how much more it ran. I can get that from Cliff Gurnham for you. Do you?
I don't know offhand, but I know that the totals probably aren't in yet because, of course, the building committee hasn't met, and I'm sure that there's still expenses coming in, but I don't want to even guess what the number was, but there was added expenses for those rooms. It was not a huge number,
Right.
but what the final number is after all is said and done, like you said, there was cabinetry that was taken out, and I believe they had to take some of the floor tile out. When they did that, of course, that leads to having to do some remediation. So I'm sure, actually what I could do is I could ask that question tomorrow night, see what the number is directly.
That project didn't really go through did it go through the building
I
committee?
don't
I
recall
believe it
going
did.
to them.
I believe it did. But
Is that-
regardless, that they should either know about it or Cliff should bring it up then.
Okay.
It's part of the total capital cost.
Others? Ken?
Well, I had a couple of questions related to the minutes of these meetings. Can I proceed with those?
Yes, you may.
All right. Again, I'm in a bit of a time warp having missed last month, but in August, Mr. Gurnham reported that Adams Middle School project was moving along nicely. They expected everything to be done by the start of the school year. Is Adams complete, essentially?
No.
Those upgrades?
No.
Are they interfering with the operation of the school?
No. No, it's not ideal. There's still some plywood up. There's still some inconveniences, but it's not interfering.
Windows and
operation.
doors is what I see.
Yes, there's still some windows and doors issues. I don't remember the exact delivery date that we were anticipating now for the windows and doors. I can find out.
The security upgrade's been completed at Adams? Has that been done? Or is that part of the same project?
It's part of the same project. I think the security piece is done for parents entering, I think, and I'm not sure if it's at Adams, but I know in some of the locations, the teachers swipe cards to get in and out of the building were not fully fully installed yet and operational. But the security to get into the building by parents was done.
Wasn't it? Okay. I just had a request on the board minutes of September 8th. You had the 8.3 was preliminary enrollment report. Has the EDOs, or whatever EDOs, what number is that you have to file every October 1?
EDO 6?
EDO 6, I thought it was, right?
The 10-1 enrollment report?
Yeah, 10-1 enrollment report, otherwise known as. And that, I think the document you guys have produced in the past has previous years as well.
Yes. No, there's two different documents. You want me to
Okay,
send
yeah.
both of them?
Yeah, could you send both, please?
I will get that out to all of you,
Thank you.
to everybody.
Do you happen to know offhand what the enrollment change resulted in?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I have a copy of it that was just sent to me, but I
Yeah, didn't, okay.
get to review it.
Others?
I have a small question here. There's three substantial checks that are going out to Pat Munger Construction. And it's for classroom refreshment. What is classroom refreshment? Is that painting it, painting the classroom?
That's the part of the kindergarten classroom refreshment to get the rooms ready for the kindergarten classrooms.
So is that
It's
refurbishing?
taking
painting
out
it?
cabinets, painting it. They did new flooring. Munger didn't do the flooring, but they did the cabinetry work and some whatever other renovations that were required to get the room ready for kindergarten classrooms.
Thank you.
Any others? Ken?
I have one question about, 2 meetings ago, you had referenced a $20,000 allocation to Columbia, or $20,000 estimate to engage the experts at Columbia University, I assume Teachers College, to develop an analysis of our gifted and talented program, or whatever we call it, advanced student
The
program.
high achieving students.
And I see in the current brace of minutes that there's now a parallel study underway here, which I assume will add more money, or will that be part of the $20,000, involving Northport High School and North Shore High School and Father Holt Schneider, the president of DePaul University, to evaluate the IB program and its relationship to the AP program. Couldn't all of that be wrapped into the one study that we have? Are we engaging in
No,
overkill in these?
Different programs.
it's different. They're actually looking, I think part of the high achieving student study is looking at the possibility of introducing the IB program. But we have teachers and staff at the high school that are exploring the IB program, which requires attending some conferences and some training sessions to decide whether or not implementing the IB program into the high school would be a beneficial thing. It was an item that was talked about during our budget process. So they're exploring the IB program. Some of the staff at the high school are attending some
I had
different
some similar
conferences.
questions, Ken, during the budget season, and this IB is International Baccalaureate, is a different track from AP
Right.
and the existing, honors programs. So, I mean, I think the idea is it's really a separate silo, and it needs to be explored as such, and we're going to get some more information. It's not conclusive. The whole point of this is to find out if
Right.
it makes sense for us,
There'll be
as I
more
remember.
There'll be more discussion as we get into the budget process again about the International Baccalaureate program. The High Achieving Student Study touches on all grades, not just the high school students. So it's making sure that we meet the needs of our high achieving students at all levels, not just the high school. So they are two separate things that overlap when you get to the high school area.
Is that budgeted? How much is that going to?
The IB program?
Yeah.
Yes, it was 39,000 total, I believe.
For the study.
The study.
The study.
No, to study the International Baccalaureate
Yes,
program,
just the
yes.
study.
Just
Right.
this-
The program
It's-
itself hasn't been.
Right.
But the study of that program is then twice the budget as the study for the high-achieving students.
Yes, because one is having a consultant come in to our district to look at what we're doing. One is sending us some staff to a location to be trained and to learn more about the program. So they're a little bit different types of training and studies.
Is that also timed to be completed at about the same time as the Columbia study?
No, until the
The DePaul study?
it'll be part of the budget discussion, so we'll have more information as we get into the budget process. The high achieving student study should be done, I believe, sometime before the end of the year. And I think the IB study, we should have some information probably about the same time. So in time for the budget process to see where we go with both of those.
Any others?
Yeah, I have one question about Craig Mullity recommended that the school starts later the time. What is considered later start time?
I haven't really been involved in this discussion, but I know that there were varying degrees of what people thought was the appropriate start time for high school. Some people were looking anywhere from a half hour to, I think some people were recommending like 2 hours later.
So like 9:30?
It all depends on who you talk to.
I'm familiar with Wilton. I work with a fellow who has children in the Wilton school system, and they basically inverted it. The high school students start at about 9 o'clock, 8:45, 9 o'clock. And then the younger kids start at the 7:30 to 8 window. I'm sure the districts do it differently all over the country, those that have opted for that.
Yeah, there was another district that changed their start time and now have pulled it back a little bit. So they're not starting as early as they were, but they are starting a little bit later. I know that there were some discussions about that. It becomes an issue with busing. It becomes an issue with students who work after school, students who participate in sports, parents who rely on high school students to watch younger siblings. So there were a number of issues that have come up over looking at changing the start time.
Not the least of which is in some districts, they do consolidate bus runs, which was recommended, or which was an item for evaluation here, where you're doing K through 6 and 7 through 12 on the buses, and there are some philosophies about whether or not 7th graders should be on the bus, same buses with 12th graders, as well as 6th graders being on the buses, kindergartners being on a bus with 6th graders. There's a socialization issue there that many educators are concerned about, which is predominantly why Guilford has established the various school groupings the way they have, K through 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, even though 5 through 8 all ride on the same bus. So there's a lot of concern on that.
Yeah, I know there was some mention of doing a K through 6 bus. So you do the elementaries in Baldwin on a run, and then Adams in the high school on a run. And there were some options being looked at and discussed. I don't know where it stands now with that.
Anything else on the board there? No? Nope. Very good. Thank you, Linda. Is there a motion to accept the bills of the Board of Education for the month of September in the amount of $4,771,308?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? None? Thank you. Item 5, review and approve the report of expenditures for town government for September 2014. Sheila, come on up. What would you like to bring to our attention? Good evening again.
Well, revenue looks really good, so we'll start with that.
Are you
Actually,
going right to finance?
I
I thought
am,
you might.
as of 9/30/14, we've collected 53.5% of our revenue budget, compared to 52.2% last year at the end of September. I believe every department is ahead of budget.
Certainly looks that way.
So if you look at fire department, they're at 17.9, they should
What
be
their
at
arrears?
exactly there, I would say 8.33 times 2. So that right-
Get you to the number, yeah.
And finance is at 47.8%. So last month, we didn't have a little bit of interest income recorded in time for the reports,
Report.
but we have now recognized all the revenue collected through September, and that's really due to some bond proceeds that we borrowed in August and tax collections.
Good.
So still small in terms of dollars, but good in terms of meeting the budget. Tax collections are strong, 54.2% compared to 52.8% last year. Police department has already exceeded their budget. We're having a little difficulty in trying to get that budget just right. It was a high number back in 2012 because of the cars that they charge to the contractors when a car actually has to sit with their lights running and the car kind of idling. We charge the contractors for that, and it goes to this revenue line. And so in I think fiscal 12, we had a large amount of revenue because of the storms, and then we backed it down, and then we brought it back up, and it seems like it's becoming more prevalent to rent out the cars, so we're just getting more revenue, which is fine.
Well, I think there have been a couple of projects. One, the DDR, the rock pile is one, and then the gas lines being
the,
run. so-
changing of the traffic signals.
Right.
Yeah, so that's.
The bridge, I think.
So they may not be there next year, but they're certainly here this year. Exactly.
And the
So-
building department revenue?
Excuse me?
Building department revenue?
Oh, building department is very strong as a result of some of the permits from Guilford Commons coming in.
That's the rock pile?
That would be it.
Yes, and the same goes for the health department. There were some health permits for the test pits that is impacting their budget too as well. So they're at 70% collected. It looks like a good year.
And Youth and Family Services is also running a month in arrears. Do they run?
Youth and Family is also a month behind, so they're 2 months at, so they're ahead as
So
well.
they're still running ahead.
Yes.
When will the state deem it appropriate to start releasing some of their funds to us? When do we usually see those?
September 30th, and it's very possible that it just didn't get on, I think September is an ECS payment, if I'm not mistaken, so you'll see that next month. It may have hit October 1st, I'm not sure.
Any other questions on revenue? Sure. Sure. Going once, going twice.
Okay, expenditures. We've obligated 39.7% of our budget, compared to last year, 40.6%. There really is no one department that I can say is unusual. The same thing as last month. There are some departments that are higher than the 25% through the year, but that's just timing, such as debt service, insurance, 2 payments instead of 1, just made a week earlier than last year, or
Well, may I have a question?
Go ahead.
And it sort of ties into one of the warrants somewhere, but it really shows up in expenditures as well. There's a tree, the maintenance hit of $19,000. I mean, it's 1/3 of the total allocation for the year there. I mean, that's just, is that because, I would think the spring would be also kind of an expensive time for that I mean, that line item always kind of concerns me, that it's not necessarily large enough, given the last few years of experience we've been through.
Well, there's still $21,000 left there, plus the encumbrance, so about $25,000 left in
Yeah.
tree maintenance and removal, so.
And we spent 19,000 in 1 month? Is that just,
Well,
why did that happen?
I think it makes sense that they don't, don't have the contractors take down a tree at a time. They probably group them together and do them in a group.
I see.
I think that's probably economically more.
I made a note on one of the warrants. It made reference actually to a specific street. Maybe when we get to the warrants, oh, here it is. It says, if I can jump around a little bit, tree removal, Goose half mile. That's $14,000 right there. What is that?
But chances are that that's all that we could fit on the memo, so I'll try to respond and.
You're leaving out some of the good stuff.
Yeah, I don't think one tree is that much.
Or one street. That's
No.
even.
I'll get you more detail on that.
All right, so that makes more sense. So basically, you're aggregating a contract with a contractor to take care of this cluster of problems, and then we'll get another similar set of bills at some other point?
I think that's
And
usually
then-
what happens unless it's an emergency tree removal.
Okay. So,
Yeah, because the tree has to be posted, and there's a whole procedure that has to go on. So what Kevin does is he puts out a PO for the tree or trees, and then he has them come down. He has the contractor come down all at once and then takes care of several trees at one time.
okay.
I had a question for you, Sheila, on the legal expenditures. I noticed that most of that 14% increase over the previous year, at least to date, is because of assessments and revaluation.
Yes.
Could you explain that a bit?
Well, this is the year that we anticipated high expenditures for revaluation claims that are, have become appeals, court appeals, tax appeals, so to speak. And we've, between the contractor that we have engaged for our independent appraisals and the legal fees, we've spent, over $50,000, but much of that will stay. In other words, the appraisals were all done, so you won't see I think there's one more payment actually left on that vendor. We split it into 3 payments, so there'll be one more payment of, I think, $17,000 for the appraiser, and then the legal fees are sort of winding down now. So it's a lot less than we've spent in prior years. We're beginning to settle them quicker, and we have less appeals than we've had in prior revaluations.
But this was fully contemplated when we put the budget together, because
Yeah.
traditionally the first year after a reval, the number spikes in terms of the,
Yeah, and last year was the end, the last year of the reval period for 6 years. Okay, we had a reval 6 years prior to that. This is the first year of the new reval year. So we would anticipate the reval claims to be the highest this year.
Let's see.
Okay, so that's why if you're comparing year to year, this would be one of the highest this year and next year. Okay.
We budgeted $110,000. We've spent about 50,
Close to 60.
53.
Sheila, police, overall, they're pretty close to target. However, when I looked at the detail behind it, a significant amount of encumbrances, obviously, which is traditional for the police department. But salaries seem to be running low. Are we down positions as a result of position vacancies? But if we were down position vacancies, I would have thought that overtime would be higher, but overtime is also down. The only one that's up, and I actually have a question on this, is the sick leave exchange and how the sick leave exchange works, but
Okay, well, what happens with workers' comp now is that if someone is out on comp, then we pay them through the line item here, and then we get the insurance check that comes back in, so that really nets out. So it becomes a budgetary savings for the year, at least, in the salary account.
Right.
I believe, I don't remember exactly how many vacancies there are right now, but in the
Police, I'm
police
sorry.
department, there
Police.
may be,
3.
I was gonna say 2 or 3, yeah.
But our overtime line is not getting hammered either. The overtime line is not getting expended to any significant degree either.
It would be replacement if they, not so much overtime. Overtime would be the order-ins and if an officer has to stay on his shift to finish writing a report. The replacement is,
The replacement's at 22%, so
yeah.
that's even below.
Well,
You know, if we have 3 vacancies in the police department, why are the salaries going up $206,000?
show me where, the 206 is actually what was expended in the month of September for police salaries.
But the original budget was $2,640,000. The revised budget is $2 million.
Oh, the 2,000,008 reflects the contract settlement.
I see.
So that's actually the true salary budget that you really need to
Okay.
compare the 206 to.
And that money was moved out of reserve for personnel?
Yes. Yeah, I think you approved that last month.
Yes, we did. Other questions on expenditures? No? Warrants? Any other warrants? I had a couple. Page 37, there's a big warrant there. 3N, Mulberry Tuttle's Point Water Main, $3,400, general legal expense. Where are we with that whole project?
That project is actually moving along. The $3,400 was to put together an easement for the Indian Cove community, should they not want to become part of the water main project, which would include Indian Cove, Mulberry Point, and Tuttle's Point. But we would have to reroute the water to a little bit part of Indian Cove that would require an easement.
Okay.
Now, the Board of Selectmen this morning approved the easement, which cost us this $3,400.
Okay.
However, that easement might not be necessary should we get this grant that we're going after, because the grant would considerably reduce the cost to all 3 communities. So much so that the folks in Indian Cove might decide to jump aboard. So that's being worked on.
Okay.
That's a very short Reader's Digest.
Digest version of a very
where we are.
complicated subject.
We're still pursuing it, but should they not want to jump aboard, people of Mulberry Point and Tuttle's Point still want to go ahead with the project. But we need that little piece of Indian Cove to make this project work.
And Joe, this potential funding, federal funding, is it a federal program? State program, state funding, would reduce the overall cost of the project, I assume, correct?
It would, but the cost in the end would be borne by the people in those communities.
Right. Are we still contemplating issuing bonds by the town, and then those who participate would be paying the town back over
That's
time?
correct.
That is correct.
That's correct. Right. The town would be guaranteeing the payment of those bonds.
Right.
Okay. But there is a new program that if we are accepted into the program, the repayment would be only 50%. Okay. On top of the reduced cost of
right.
the project. So it could be a very, very favorable project, so much so that I think a majority of all 3 communities would jump on board. But there's a time constraint. That's why we're working very hard to get this through.
Joe, round numbers, cost of the whole
I
project?
don't have that.
You don't have
The
that?
water company's putting together new construction
Construction
numbers.
cost for that.
Once we get those numbers, we're going to hold a new informational meeting for all 3 communities.
And Joe, the process to issue bonds here would still need to go to referendum?
Absolutely, because we're indebting the whole town.
That's exactly what I wanted to make sure people do. On page 53, Sheila, TransUnion, credit report for the police department. What would the police department be doing, issuing or requesting credit reports? If you don't have an answer to that,
I don't have an answer.
it's a credit report. They,
Yeah,
what-
credit checks.
Credit checks?
Credit checks, yeah.
Part of investigative
Right.
work? Understood. No more. Anybody else on warrants? Ken?
On the very first page, figure 2470 for building permit field services. Could you explain that one? To David Stannard.
I will have to check on that. I really don't know the answer to that.
Field work, it says.
I would think that it has to do, it's charged to the assessor, which makes me believe that it could be a property tax audit. And that makes sense because there is a budget line item for that. There are, the assessor has the ability to choose certain property tax declarations and audit them to make sure that the correct amount is reported by the business. So this is most likely the contractor that's doing that audit, but I'll just verify that with you, with the assessor, and get back to you.
Also see a figure for, on page 81, 2 invoices in excess of $10,000 for contracted psychological services. Is that for any particular department, or it's a contract? What's the scope of the contract, and what's it for?
Oh, if it's Dr. El Fishaway?
Yes, it is.
That's Youth and Family Services. That's their
Family
psychiatrist
services.
that they're contracted with.
I
Yes.
see. I see.
Any others?
Yeah, Sheila, the general fund checks, there's a, and again, it's just language maybe, there on the cover sheet, there's a notice for employee benefits with the Teamsters, something called the withdrawal agreement.
That's the pension, Teamsters pension plan. That had to do with when we negotiated their contract. That we closed one pension plan and we're paying a withdrawal fee every month now for the next 20 years or 15? 25 years, right, in addition to the current plan contribution.
So it's just
It's a set-
part of the overall pension obligation to
Yes.
that union?
Zero interest.
Okay. Okay.
I was curious about one of the special fund weekly checks for Blue Ribbon Services. Are they building sidewalks on Seaside Avenue? It says sidewalk account. Yep. They are.
Yes.
Is that part of the beach project, or is that?
I don't think so.
I have a,
Oops, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ken.
may I?
Yes.
I have a small $4,200,000 question to ask. With this additional payment to the high school, are we on target with the major contractors, or I'm asking this of Mike because you usually check this out. How much have they been
I
paid
usually do it,
already?
but a little
Where
bit
are they?
MIA on the high school building committee
Oh, okay.
the last few weeks, just due to conflicts. Haven't heard anything in my conversations with building committee members at the high school. I don't know the percent complete. I really have to tell you, I don't know.
I worked with Bill Mulligan, the Finance Subcommittee, and we went over some numbers, and we have to finalize some small adjustments to the report as to where things are charged. So next month, we should have a nice report. It's taken a while, but they're right on top of it. I mean, they keep track of every little expenditure, as does our owner's rep.
Construction management.
The owner's rep. They're also doing it. So we all have to agree, and we've also just submitted another progress payment number 2. So, funds are coming in from the state as well.
Good. Well, the last time we spoke was when we went through the building on that invited tour, and they were very confident of completing the project by July.
I think they're scheduled to be on.
Latest meeting I had with the executive committee of the building committee is that they plan to complete it on time and within budget. There's no deviation from that at all.
Any others?
Am I right that the contingency has been expended?
No,
Not yet.
not at all,
Not at all.
not at all.
Still have the full contingency.
Sorry?
No, it's not all, you're not right that it's been expended. There's some contingency that's been used for some of the.
Contingency,
They're monitoring the use of the contingency as the project goes on, but they're trying.
They still have a
they're trying
healthy
to save as much of it
contingency.
as they can.
is available. right?
Good. That was the
Yeah.
reason.
And that's one of the items that we're working on too, because we want to move whatever's been expended into the line item that it was appropriately charged to of construction.
Anything else? Medical benefits. Sheila, I very much appreciate the new format. I do have a question. Under the new column, claims greater than 75,000, does the $986,000 number there for September reflect the total amount of claims or that in excess of 75,000?
Yeah, I'm going to fix that to make that clearer to the reader. Yes, 986 is the total claims for 3 months.
Okay.
And then of that amount, 403,000 was covered by the stop loss.
Okay.
The difference, the number that's not there is
All right.
583 that we
Gotcha.
have
That
paid.
we've absorbed.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so through the first 3 months, we're nearly halfway to covering the stop loss.
Yes,
payments.
I put that there
Right.
so you could see, because, it was a big decision, it was a costly decision, but I think it's the right one.
And what was the difference between the stop loss premium this year and last year? How much?
I want to say 500 to 600.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a big number, but I think it looks like we're on the right track.
Yeah, not that
because-
we want to track it on this, but I'm sure you guys are keeping an
No.
eye of what would have and what could have versus what we are.
It looks like we made the right decision.
There are 5 claims that have reached the 50% of the stop loss at the end of September.
But the bad news is, as we annualize out the expenses,
I'm trying to stay consistent with the way I've done it for the past many years.
Yep.
And it's always a bad projection early in the year because that isn't so meaningful early on.
you
But
can't absorb the wide swings.
I think it's going to get better as the stop loss begins to kick in on not just the one, but other claims. More likely they will
Okay.
next month, you'll see. And so the claims will start to level out, and then the average will level out,
Good.
drop.
All right.
But it just makes us pay attention, I think.
It sure does. Any other questions? Capital reports? Any questions?
I have a question.
Certainly.
I have a question on Fund 216, the security upgrades. Why does that show us so far over budget?
I need to discuss
About
this
$850,000.
with Cliff Gurnham, because what's going on here is it's one contractor for I think it's Windows that is split between several projects, and it may just be the allocation, you can see Jones
Right.
has a balance at the bottom of the page.
Yep.
I noted that when I put the report together, and I need to speak with Cliff about it to make sure that the allocations are correct.
That's significantly higher than we budgeted.
But I think that there is other accounts with a balance that...
Will absorb
the
that.
699, for example, at the very bottom of the first page.
Yes?
I think part of those charges need to go to that line item as well.
I see.
It's only from one contractor that caused this kind of skewed balance, so I'm going to check on that.
Okay.
Okay. Any others on the capital projects? The only question I have, Sheila, I know we are cautious about closing out any of the issues.
214.
Are there any that we're getting closer to doing that?
On the town side, no.
Okay.
There's still available funds, and we're still working on all of those. And on the school, I mean, the very first one from 2012
Yep.
probably could be closed out. You know, I'm hoping to close out a whole fund,
Right.
but actually, when we put together in August, we deauthorized several projects.
Projects, oh, yeah.
So those were from Fund 214 and 214.
Okay.
So, I mean, we are making progress at that, but I don't want to cut them off too soon.
Prematurely. Okay. Any other questions on the capital? Nope. What do we got next? Building permits, 9 through the first quarter.
Good pace.
Very good pace.
Golf courses.
And golf course? Sheila, I did have a question. Through September, we're showing an operating surplus of $267, with the operating transfer another $300,000. Obviously, we're going, or 30,000, I'm sorry. My eyes were going a little further down the page. Obviously, revenues are going to start to drop off. Is there a commensurate drop-off in expenditures over the next couple of months, salaries, part-time salaries, et cetera? So, you know, I guess the question is, how bad is it going to get over the winter before we start seeing?
Well, the 30,000 now has to last them the rest of the year.
Right.
So
Oh,
267.
there'll be some October revenues coming in.
Right.
And
The
a couple,
good weather the first
and a
half
couple
of
guys like Lou will play some November golf if it warms up, but. No, because that means snow's falling in November.
The salaries-
And that costs us somewhere else.
Create a new sport called snowshoe golf.
Right.
The salaries, part-time and clubhouse and maintenance will drop off.
Dramatically, right.
Full-time will not, because
Right.
it's a salaried position. They haven't
Yeah.
spent anything in their equipment repairs.
Right.
So I'm not sure, you know, if they're waiting until the winter when they don't use the equipment to have any repairs done.
Right.
How many full-time employees do we have?
One.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, keep an eye on it, and I know that, I think the last meeting, we talked about the first selectman is looking at, is paying close attention to golf course operations at this point.
We meet tomorrow night, which I told them I plan to be at, and I want to see what their plans are for the winter months and spring. So we'll see where we go from there. contractor they hired to raise 3 of the tees has done a fantastic job. I mean, it looks really great. I don't know if you've been up there.
I haven't been, I saw the work and.
It's really added some nice definition to the course.
Yeah.
And it looks great. Good. Just hoping it attracts more play.
Fall the grass back in place too.
Yeah, they've sodded everything. Looks really good. So.
Any other questions on golf? No? Thank you, Sheila. Is there a motion to approve the bills to the town for the month of September in the amount of $2,032,570?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Recusal? None? Motion passes. Thank you. Item 6, consider and take possible action on request of the Board of Selectmen regarding capital plan purchase. At a special meeting today, the Board of Selectmen voted unanimously to award bid number 6-1415-18 for a capacity wood chipper from Newtown Power Equipment in the amount of $49,962.01, plus an additional amount up to $3,600 for the Chip Safe Operator Safety Shield, subject to a recommendation from the Board of Finance in accordance with the April 9, 2013 bond resolution. Is there a motion to approve the $49,962 plus the additional amount of $3,600?
So moved.
Second. Any questions, comments?
Yeah,
And,
I have a question.
don't even bring up Richard Cross.
No. And, you know, you're selling an 18-inch capacity wood chipper, right? And it actually doesn't come with an operator safety shield? You have to spend extra for the operator safety shield? I mean, I'm astounded at that.
Actually, when the Public Works Department got some other estimates, this is the only manufacturer, because of the size of this equipment, that offers the additional safety guards for this.
So what is that then? That beyond that's beyond the normal safety?
Yeah.
Can you just explain that a little bit?
18 inches is 1.5 foot.
Yeah, that's a big wood chipper.
Yeah, and considering what we went through the last few years with storms, we were unable to get this equipment, and that's why we put it in the capital budget when we needed it. Yeah, it's these guards here. I can pass this around, you can see it. Look at it. And And I would much rather spend $3,600 and put our men in danger.
No question.
Not to even mention the workers' comp cost to it. I mean, the first thing is safety. So, yeah, you're right, it probably should have came with it, but it doesn't. So I'll be very happy to be the first one to spend the $3,600 to keep our men safe. And cut the risk management down.
My question is, where is this in the capital project?
It's in the capital plan, it's under bonding, under 2015. So it was approved in the, on the April 2013 bonding resolution.
This
So
one was a little
Sound property
tricky.
improvement and equipment acquisition?
I'm
Or
sorry,
no,
ma'am.
Public Works infrastructure improvement and equipment acquisition? That would be the purple shaded section there?
Correct.
Yeah, Public Works, there you go.
It's the yellow shaded section.
Oh, yellow, down below, Public Works, okay, different one.
It's, okay. So it's
Emergency
part of the
services.
1.2.
We're trying to keep the accounts somewhat consolidated, but yes,
No,
it is
no,
part of the
I-
1.2.
Okay, so that's where it's going to be taken from.
So that was the 15, 16.
I was looking for,
Okay.
I was looking for a wood chipper.
What?
Oh, I was looking for the chipper itself, you know,
Oh,
the
well, if
unit,
you
but
go back
it's part
to-
of
if you go back
a
to the
number of
capital-
items.
Pretty interesting.
If you go back to the capital plan,
radio
it does
control.
list
It's
all
in
that.
there, okay, all right.
So really, there's like an electronic safety shut-off
Yeah.
that has to, you guys should take a look at this thing. They have to wear special gloves and
That's right.
Special
and
shoes.
attachment on their
In
feet.
other words, a guy like me could fit through that.
God forbid, Joe.
It's not to say there's some people who would like me to go through that.
All right. So, anyway, it does seem like an appropriate add-on.
Very appropriate.
Don't get any ideas.
And
You brought it up. I don't know where you just...
Obviously, the manufacturer has determined that there's a market out there for folks who aren't willing to protect their employees and avoid the significant risk.
Right.
So, all right, there is a motion, right? Yeah. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained? No, good. Committee reports, report on Guilford High School Building Committee. Mike, is there anything? No, okay, that's right. Old business, Ken, you had something you wanted to
Yes, I
deal with?
did. Again, this goes back to the last standing building committee minutes, which I don't expect you to have, from September 2nd. Let me see what I had noted here. Yeah, it was on security upgrades. It's the same question, kind of the other side of the coin. Back on item 13 of the minutes that were dated September 2nd, the committee voted to approve payments from Orlando Anuli for over $246,000 for 66% of the completion of contractor services at the Lake School as part of the security upgrade. My question was really, that's what caught my eye, was the fact that school was beginning and the Lake School had 66% of its security upgrades in place, and I just wanted an update on that.
I think it was probably just because the payment requisition from the contractor was a few weeks behind.
It's completed, all the security upgrades.
The elementary schools are done.
The elementary
I think
schools.
all the elementary schools are done.
done.
Adams was, we talked about Adams already tonight.
We did.
But the other schools, as far as I know, are complete. They went pretty smooth. Lakes was, I believe, the easiest out of all of them to complete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A simple addendum to that. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, now I'm trying to remember. Jones was the difficult one.
Yeah, because the terrain...
There were issues with Jones. Lakes was the easy one. That was just,
Yeah, Jones hasn't been done yet.
yeah, they pushed it. Right, that was complicated. Right. So, yeah, usually that the payment requisitions may be a couple of weeks behind by the time it gets to the building committee. It might have been 66% then, but by the time the building committee gets it, it's at 80, 85.
Right.
So,
The present high school is, we're still living there for this year. Are there any security upgrade questions that should be addressed now for this existing building? Or are we all set? We're okay?
We're not doing anything to the existing high school as far as security upgrades, other than what's in place.
My understanding was there were new protocols and procedures as
Yes.
opposed to physical changes
Yes.
relative to the locking of certain doors during certain times. Is that consistent with what you understand?
There's no equipment, no renovations or no renovations are going to be done at high school. It's just all changing.
But there are no concerns about mechanical emergency or short-term mechanical upgrades that would be needed? No concerns?
Not
Okay.
at this time.
No. Good. I had another couple pieces of old business. Sheila, in the past, you provided a couple of different types of reports. Summary of the dedicated road fund. No, Joe, I'm not going to go down. I'm not going to fight with Jim Portley on that, believe me. But if you could put that together for us, I think it was a two-pager. And then land acquisition special fund report, update to reflect 2014.
Sure, they're all set up.
I figured they probably were, so
Yep.
send that out to everyone, please. Okay. All right, 8.1, remove from table and take possible action on salary adjustment for the registrar of voters. For those in the viewing audience, this board has been contemplating salary treatment for the two registrars of voters that work for the town. They are part-time employees. I won't bore you with the details of significant amount of discussions that we've had in the past. The Board of Finance is tasked with setting the salaries for elected officials, those that receive compensation for their work. And the Registrar of Voters are in fact elected officials. There's to say the least, it's kind of difficult for us to get our hands around exactly, the workload of these folks. They have provided us with a substantial amount of detail in terms of what their job includes and how it has increased over time as a result of changes in procedures dictated by the state legislature as well as the Secretary of State, who basically provides a direction and guidance for the registrars of voters. And while the First Selectman has some oversight, their processes, procedures, and regulations are ones that come down from the state. So I think it's some minor supervisory responsibilities, not even. You don't do job evaluations or anything like that. So this is something that is dictated to us by the state. I will, however, say that they are charged with safeguarding the integrity of the process of the democratic processes which we enjoy, not the least of which is an election that gets held at least once a year. The registration of voters to maintain voting lists, to keep sure and ensure the integrity of those processes. That being said, the Registrar of Voters have not had an increase in over 4 years, in 4 years I believe. They do not receive benefits, and they had specifically made a request to this board looking for a 5% salary increase from their current salary of $20,000 to, I'm glad they gave me round numbers to work with. That would be a $1,000 raise, bringing it up to $21,000, with an ask that we consider additional treatment over the next 4 years. We've had some discussions before. Is there anyone who wishes to opine on how we should treat them or what actions we should take? Peter, you had mentioned something. You had an opinion, I believe, 2 months ago when we last discussed this in full. Anybody else? For a straw man, I support the 5% increase, which would be effective July 1, 2016. The additional years, they had made a request of 2%. I would entertain discussion around maybe 1.25% for each of the 4 years thereafter, which turns out to be not an awful lot of money. It's a couple $100, a little over a couple $100 a year. So that's a straw man that I put out there. Anybody have any comments relative to something like that? I'm not putting it in a motion yet. I just want to have some discussion.
Yeah, Matt, just a quick question on that point. Those numbers sound about what makes sense to me, but if the 5% goes into effect July 1, would the 1.25% each additional year be January?
No.
Or would it be every July?
Every July.
Because their proposal is looking for January, for what it's worth.
Right.
We're stuck with that. You're saying
We had some discussions relative to that process. We have set precedent in the past with how we treated the selectmen salaries, and it was a recommendation from the town's HR director, and I believe it's supported by the first selectman to start it, because clearly that money wasn't earmarked for January 1.
Great, fine. So that just so we're consistent there. And I do have a question about the report, speaking of the HR director. He gave us a memo on this back in July. And he mentions that, the second page of this, if everybody's got that, he says, the registrars receive extra pay at times of elections and for attending conferences, although this seems to be standard practice in most municipalities. Is that say exactly what it says? That they get paid beyond the $20,000 they're getting paid?
There are some
They do get paid
training.
to extra, or I should say a fee, to attend certain mandatory meetings that the Secretary of State requires them to attend, including travel expenses, beyond their salary.
Okay.
They get paid by the state. is that-
No, by the town.
So it's similar to the travel expenses that we pick up for school
Yeah, yeah,
administrators,
Right.
teachers, and certainly people in the town.
right.
But there's apparently, in addition to the travel expenses, a small stipend
That
attached
small
to that
stipend for attending
for attending these conferences.
beyond their salary, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate some of the things I mentioned the last time. You know, it is a part-time job, and obviously, no part-time employee does get health care benefits. And it's not a bad paying part-time job. I think they earn their money, and I go along with the idea that we give them a 5% raise this year. I don't believe that we should commit the town to any kind of increase going forward. I think we should look in terms of what the inflation rate is, maybe every year, or consumer price indices, but I don't think we should commit the town to having certain kinds of expenses year after year after year. I think it should be evaluated, because obviously every projected increase that we have, that means obviously taxpayers are going to have to pay for that. So I'd rather just look at it on a yearly basis as opposed to a sure thing every year.
Peter, as we discussed earlier, we don't have the luxury of doing that because we can't take, by this board's policy, and we believe there are some state guidelines around this about taking salary action on incumbents. That type of behavior could smack of significant amount of partisanship over time. This board adopted a policy that we will set the salaries prior to an election, so we are not setting it for any individual, an incumbent, or perhaps a challenger. So there are some difficulties with doing exactly that. We had talked about the possibility of setting it to an indice. Quite honestly, I'd feel more comfortable with 1.25% than I would tying it to the cost of inflation. Is that the kind of barometer you would use, or are you suggesting that these two positions should not, as their counterparts on the town side who are in bargaining units, be entitled to anticipation of a raise on a yearly basis? Is that your suggestion?
Yeah, basically, I don't think it should be an automatic raise. It should be evaluated, down the road, as we've been doing.
Okay, then we can agree to disagree on that piece. Anyone else?
Just have a comment or two. I think what they're asking for is perfectly reasonable, and I think your straw man is perfectly reasonable. But I guess I do have just a question about an increase that would go forward. Is there a precedent? We are allowed to have an increase that would go forward?
Absolutely. We've done it for years with the setting of their salaries.
Okay.
As well as with the Board of Selectmen. As you may recall, a couple of years, a year ago, a little over a year ago, we established the salaries, which included raises in each of the 4 years for the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. And the issue that I thought might be at stake was, are we taking away from the next elected Board of Finance in their ability to adjust as they see fit in the future, and that we could actually build the increase in, immediately?
The answer is yes.
If we wanted to.
The answer is yes, but the next board would have to change the policy that this board operates under, which is to only entertain salary treatment in the prior to an election cycle, that for which those individuals are standing for election.
And then just to go just slightly further, your straw man is agreeable to me, but I also felt that just even looking at prevailing inflation, which I don't think should dictate our decisions, but just looking at that, it could even be a little higher, I think. Yeah.
I'm open to suggestions here.
1.5 would be my suggestion instead of 1.25 per year.
That's fine. Anybody else?
I'm in agreement with Jonathan on that. I was looking at the past historical information. Again, I'm in agreement with 5%. And 1.25, I'm sitting here looking at the numbers, and we don't know what it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be anything that's way above a 2% number. think 1.5 is fair based on just looking at 4 years out. And then after 4 years, we reevaluate. Yeah, I think that's a fair number.
Your proposal does call for 4 years out.
For the subsequent years, for the
Yeah.
subsequent years of their
Subsequent
term.
years.
Right.
Are the terms 4-year terms, or are they 2-year?
Yes, 4-year terms. Yeah, they're all on 4-year terms, right?
Okay. Yeah, so is it 5% and then 3 1.5%
Yes, it is.
raises? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's what we're talking
I have no
Sounds fair to
objection
me.
to the 5% increase. 1 1/4, I think the difference between 1 1/4 and 1 1/2 is de
$12
minimis.
maybe.
Yeah, so.
Not much.
Jonathan, I could certainly, if you want to put that motion together.
Sure. I would motion that we accept the proposal of the registrars have sent us, where they requested a 5% salary increase effective, that would be January 1st, 2015?
No, July 1st. July 1st.
Apologize, July
1st,
1st, 2015. And with a annual increase for the following 3 years.
Right. For the balance of their term.
1.5%, starting in July of 2016,
Correct.
and then
Yes.
for 3
about.
consecutive
July
years.
2015?
2016.
2016. 1.5 is for 2016, correct. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? One in opposition?
No,
Oh,
actually.
I thought you raised your hand.
No, I am voting for the 5%.
Okay.
But the fact that you guys, you know, I can understand where you're coming from as far as the argument. So, you know, whether or not it's 1.5, 1.5, or we look at the consumer price indices, it's going to probably come out the same in the watch.
It's going to be relatively close.
Yeah.
All right, so you have voted for the motion?
Yes.
Thank you. So it's unanimous. Thank you very much. This isn't being broadcast, so I'm sure someone will tell the registrars tomorrow when they're in the office, if they haven't already sent me an email by the time I get up tomorrow. New business. Hearing none. 10, public forum. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.